Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to help you navigate complex topics quickly, get those key insights, without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Exactly. We want to make it digestible, but still really thorough.
So today we're diving into something pretty fundamental, really. It's about the power of your mind, how it connects with your brain, and maybe, just maybe, how much control we actually have over our thoughts and, well, our well-being.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And we've got some great material to work with today, mainly from Dr. Caroline Leaf's work, The Switch on Your Brain Workbook, and the main book itself.
Right. And what's interesting is how they blend, the neuroscience with practical steps and even some scriptural perspectives too.
It gives a pretty rounded picture.
Yeah.
So our goal here is to really pull out the core ideas.
Okay, so what are we covering? We'll look at whether the mind controls the brain or is it the other way around? The reality of choice, how thoughts physically impact us.
That whole multitasking myth, which I think everyone feels. And then some maybe surprising links between thinking, spirituality, and even quantum physics. And of course, the actual science of how thoughts change things.
Okay, let's jump in. This first point, mind controls matter. That sounds pretty counterintuitive, doesn't it? We usually think the brain runs the show.
We absolutely do. And, for a long time, science mostly said the mind is just what the brain does, an output.
Right.
But this perspective flips that. It argues the mind is the active force, directing the body, which includes the brain.
Hmm.
The workbook even brings in that idea from Sesti Timothy, suggesting we're kind of hardwired for power, love, and a sound mind, not fear.
Okay, and that connects to the science bit about being wired for love, having this natural optimism.
Exactly. It suggests our baseline isn't negative.
Yeah.
But the real question is, how does this mind over matter
Mhm.
actually work, like practically?
Yeah, what's the mechanism?
Well, the key idea is that thoughts aren't just abstract things. They're physical. They create actual electrochemical signals in the brain. And when you repeat those thoughts, those signals carve out pathways, literally changing the brain's structure over time. This affects everything: mental health, physical health.
So it's saying we're not just stuck with our biology. We can actually influence it.
That's the core message. We're not victims of our genes. We have agency. It even mentions DNA changing shape in response to thoughts.
Whoa, okay, DNA changing shape. That sounds a bit
It,
out there.
it does sound dramatic, yeah. But it taps into real science, epigenetics, and neuroplasticity.
Right, I've heard those terms. Epigenetics is like switches on our genes.
Sort of, yeah. Think of DNA as the script, and epigenetics as the director deciding which scenes get played. Our thoughts, our lifestyle, they act like that director, influencing which genes get turned on or off.
Okay, and neuroplasticity.
That's the brain's ability to reorganize itself, to form new connections. It happens throughout life. So these two together, epigenetics and neuroplasticity, they provide the scientific backing for how the mind can physically change the brain. The books also mention the Krebs gene. Think of it like a protein crucial for memory, and how our thinking can basically flip the switch for it.
So our thoughts aren't just feelings, they're actively shaping our physical brain. That's huge.
It really is, and that leads directly into the next point: the reality of choice.
Okay. Seems obvious we make choices, but what's the deeper implication here?
Well, it emphasizes that these choices are real. They aren't predetermined. We have genuine free will, especially in where we choose to focus our attention.
And focusing attention does something physically.
Yes, that act of focusing changes brain chemistry, it affects protein production, it alters the wiring between neurons. It's an active process. These choices can trigger those epigenetic changes we just talked about, making thoughts into physical structures.
And you mentioned the frontal lobe earlier that's involved here.
Big time. The frontal lobe is like our command center for observing our own thinking, what scientists call metacognition.
Thinking about thinking.
Exactly. It allows us to step back, look at our thoughts, and decide, okay, do I want to keep thinking this? What should I do about it?
And that's where the multiple perspective advantage comes in, MPA.
Right. It's our ability, using that frontal lobe, to see things from different angles, not just our own immediate reaction. It helps us make more considered choices about our thoughts and actions.
Like seeing the bigger picture before reacting.
Precisely. And interestingly, the sources link this capacity for self-observation to spiritual concepts too, like taking thoughts captive or renewing the mind.
So our brain's built-in ability kind of aligns with these ancient ideas about managing our inner world.
That's the connection they draw, yeah. It suggests this isn't just a psychological trick. It's fundamental to how we're designed.
Okay, so mind directs brain. Choices have physical weight. Let's talk about the impact of thoughts day to day. How deep does this go?
Very deep. The sources state really clearly, everything starts with a thought, every word, every action. And they talk about this non-conscious metacognitive mind. It's like the vast underwater part of the iceberg, 90-something% of our mind's activity.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's the foundation of our perception, our worldview.
Yeah.
Our conscious thoughts are constantly shaping and being shaped by this massive non-conscious base.
Okay, that iceberg analogy helps. And there was that theory, geodesic information processing. Sounds complex.
It sounds technical, but the idea is pretty logical. Think of 3 levels. Deep down, the non-conscious metacognitive level, that's where most stuff happens automatically.
Okay.
Then there's the conscious cognitive level where we're actively thinking, deciding.
Right, the tip of the iceberg.
Kind of, yeah. And finally, the symbolic output, what we say, what we do, based on all that processing. New information filters through these levels and through genetic expression becomes a physical thought.
So it's a constant feedback loop. Our deep beliefs affect our conscious thoughts, which affect our actions, which then reinforce or change the deep beliefs.
You got it. And the impact on physical health is, well, it's significant. Stress, for example. The book defines it as the body's reaction to toxic thinking patterns. Not just external pressure, but our internal reaction.
And those statistics about illness being linked to thought life.
Yeah, they cite figures suggesting a really high percentage, like 75 to maybe even close to 98% of mental and physical illnesses are linked back to our thoughts and lifestyle choices.
That's honestly staggering. It really makes you pause and think about what's going on inside your head.
Absolutely. It suggests our mental diet is just as critical as our physical diet, maybe even more so.
And the idea that negative thinking can actually become like brain damage.
That's a strong way to put it, but yeah.
Yeah.
The brain is geared for healthy, positive thinking.
Yeah.
When we constantly feed it toxic thoughts, fear, bitterness, negativity, it disrupts its natural function. It's like wiring things incorrectly, potentially leading to real structural issues over time.
Okay, so focusing thoughts is crucial. Which brings us to multitasking, the thing we all think we're good at.
Huh. Yes. And the sources basically say, nope, you're not. It's a myth.
Really? So what are we actually doing?
We're just rapidly switching our attention. Task A, task B, back to A, glimpse at C. It's not doing them simultaneously. And this switching has costs.
Like what?
Big cost to focus, concentration, the actual quality of your attention. Dr. Leaf calls it milkshake multitasking.
Milkshake multitasking. I like that. Because it just blends everything into a mess.
Pretty much. Nothing gets your full, proper attention, so the quality of everything suffers. You make more mistakes, you don't retain information as well.
And could this constant switching actually look like something else? Like attention disorders?
The sources suggest it can, yes.
Yeah.
That pattern of flightiness, difficulty concentrating, it might stem from this chronic attention switching habit, but get misdiagnosed as something like ADD or ADHD.
That's concerning. And technology must play a huge role here. Social media, notifications.
Oh, definitely. The books point directly at excessive social media use as a major driver of this fragmented attention. It trains our brains to expect constant novelty and quick shifts.
Right. It makes deep focus feel harder.
It does. But here's the flip side. Engaging in deep, focused thought is actually good for the brain.
How so?
It activates the prefrontal cortex, our executive control center, in a positive way. It strengthens those focus circuits, improves concentration, makes us less distractible over time.
So single tasking is like a workout for the focus muscle.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. The more you practice deep work, the better you get at it.
Okay. Now, this next connection might stretch things for some listeners. Thinking God and quantum physics, how do those even connect?
It's definitely one of the more speculative but intriguing parts of the material. The argument is that certain ideas in quantum physics seem to resonate with spiritual concepts about free will and consciousness.
Like the observer effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The idea that simply observing a quantum system can change its state. The sources relate this to how our conscious focus, our choices, might actually influence reality on some level.
And there was an example about a doctor's call.
Yeah, illustrating how our mindset, our immediate thoughts and choices after receiving uncertain news can shape our emotional and maybe even physical response. It's about how our focus can start collapsing possibilities into actualities.
Okay.
This ties into something called the quantum Zeno effect, or QZE. Basically, the idea is your brain becomes structured around what you consistently focus on. Sustained attention strengthens related neural pathways. What you hold in mind shapes your mind.
So focused attention physically sculpts the brain, and the 5-step process is meant to harness that.
Yes, the five-step switch on your brain learning process is presented as a practical application of this. It's about using directed attention, gather, reflect, write, revisit, active reach to consciously improve cognitive performance and rewire thought patterns.
We'll need to break that down later. But first, entanglement. That's another quantum concept, right? How does that fit in?
Yeah, entanglement is, well, it's weird. It's where particles become linked and influence each other instantly no matter the distance.
Yeah, right. Spooky action at a distance.
That's the one. The books draw a parallel between this interconnectedness in physics and spiritual ideas of being connected, like being one body, as mentioned in Romans. It hints that maybe our thoughts, intentions, prayers even, could have non-local effects because of some underlying connection.
Suggesting prayer might operate outside normal space-time.
That's the implication explored. Using the bizarre nature of entanglement as a potential analogy for how prayer might work, possibly influencing health or well-being in ways we don't fully understand scientifically yet.
Okay, that's a lot to think about. It definitely expands the view of the mind's potential influence.
It certainly does.
So let's bring it back down to the mechanics. The science of thought changing the brain. What's the bottom line?
The absolute bottom line is the brain responds to the mind, not the other way around. It's plastic, changeable, moldable by our focused mental activity.
And this idea of automatization,
Yeah.
making things automatic.
Yes, it's how skills and thoughts move from conscious effort to non-conscious habit through repetition. Think about learning to drive.
Right. At first you think about every single thing. Later, it's mostly automatic.
Exactly. Your brain has automatized those actions. And the same happens with thought patterns. We can consciously practice new, healthy thoughts until they become our default, non-conscious way of thinking.
And the five-step process is the tool for doing that consciously.
Precisely. It's a method for intentionally wiring in new thoughts or rewiring old, unhelpful ones. Let's quickly recap them.
Yeah, let's. Step one is gather.
Gather information. Become aware of the thought you want to change or build. Step two, focused reflection. Think deeply about it.
Okay. Step three is write.
Yes. Physically writing helps consolidate the memory, adds
Yeah.
clarity. They mentioned the metacog method here, like mapping your thoughts visually.
Interesting. Then step four, revisit.
This is crucial.
Yeah.
You go back to what you wrote, analyze it, challenge the negative, reinforce the positive. This is where the thought becomes plastic changeable.
Right. Actively redesigning it.
And finally, step five, active reach. Putting the new thought into practice. Taking action based on the new perspective. Linking belief and behavior.
And this isn't a quick fix, is it? They mentioned cycles.
Right. It takes consistent practice.
Mhm.
The suggestion is multiple cycles of 21 days to really embed and automatize a new, healthy thought pattern. It requires dedication.
Okay. So wrapping this all up for everyone listening, the big takeaway seems to be that you really do have significant power here.
Immense power, yeah.
Yeah.
Your thoughts aren't just happening to you. You can actively engage with them, direct them, and that process physically changes your brain and impacts your overall health and happiness.
You're not just a passenger.
Definitely not. You can be the driver. It's about understanding that connection and using it intentionally.
So we'd really encourage you to mull over these ideas. Think about how they might apply in your own life. Maybe even try exploring those 5 steps with one specific thought pattern.
Or just start by noticing your thoughts more. What are you allowing to grow in your mental garden, so to speak? Understanding this mind-brain link really does open up huge potential for growth.
It's about choosing thoughts that build you up, that give life, instead of ones that drain you.
Exactly. Choosing life, as the saying goes.
And perhaps that's the final thought to leave you with today. Drawing from that ancient wisdom in Deuteronomy, the choice between life and death, blessing and cursing, is often presented to us. Understanding the power you hold in directing your thoughts towards life, health, and positivity, well, that's a profound way to actively choose life. Thanks for diving deep with us.